Rachel, you're up.
Okay, I'm Rachel. I'm doing a refutation speech for the international adoption. And the major claim of the speaker is that international adoption causes significant harmful consequences. The secondary claims were children of international adoption have emotional problems. International adoption negatively affects domestic adoption. And international adoption increases the cost of adoption. In refutation to this claim, I'll show that though these claims are true, domestic adoption is just as equal in consequences as international adoption. My secondary claims are that with international adoption, there are more children to choose from, domestic requirements are stricter, and children of domestic adoption are just as emotionally unfulfilled as those who are internationally adopted. First, with international adoption, there are more children to choose from. According to internationaladopt.adoption.com, there are more children to choose from internationally. This can give each person a better understanding of another culture because they are more than likely they will have to travel to another country to see the child. According to childadoptionmatters.com, there are fewer children available domestically, especially if adoptive parents prefer a child from a minority group. Domestically, a biological mother may change her mind and unexpectedly refuse to give her child up. Although there may be a restriction on this, it is not enough of a safeguard. According to travel.state.gov, there were 12,500 children adopted from around the world and 70,000 adopted in America. This shows that adoption rates are higher in America and that there are still many children readily available to adopt in other countries. Domestic requirements are stricter. According to international.adoption.com, once a person is approved for a home study, a child is guaranteed when you are adopting internationally. In international adoptions, parents and children are matched through adoption agencies and the adoption committee of the country or during a country visit. Abroad, birth mothers won't change their mind. Once referral of a child is accepted, you will most certainly become the parent. You will know of any cost before the process. According to statisticsadoption.com, domestic adoptions through private and independent agencies can cost just as much, usually between $4,000 and $30,000 plus, whereas international adoption can cost anywhere between $3,000 and $35,000 plus. So it's about the same amount. Number 3, children of domestic adoption are just as emotionally unfulfilled as those who are internationally adopted. According to Vince Berger, adopted children may have feelings of loss, grief, abandonment, self-esteem, and identity. This goes for international and domestic adopted children. So, whether or not you're adopting a child from America or abroad, like they're still gonna have like certain feelings. The development of identity is important throughout childhood, but typically becomes more focused during adolescence. So they might have feelings of like, they don't know who they are because they've never met their parents. Obviously, whether or not you are adopted abroad or, here in America, like, if you don't know your parents, you're going to kind of wonder about, like, who you are, who your family was, and what it would have been like if you had known them, your parents, your biological ones. Many studies have found that adopted persons often score lower on measures of self-esteem and self-confidence than their non-adopted counterparts. So, that goes for obviously both abroad and domestic adoption. Basically, I hope that you accept my refutation that domestic adoption is on equal footing with international adoption, and that adoption should and can be like a good thing no matter where you get the child, but it can also be like kind of a bad thing as long as like they're being raised in a loving and happy home. It really shouldn't matter where you get the child. So yeah, that's all.
Right, you start out labeling the advocate's claims and supporting points. That's pretty clear. But your general approach is kind of to diminish that argument by presenting counterclaims and developing your own structure to justify international adoptions. So your first 2 points are really just an advocacy of international adoptions. They don't directly address the issues that the advocate raised on their points. It's the third point that does give you some direct contradiction to the advocate's point, because it's about, the self-esteem or self-worth of the kids. And I think that your strategy on this point is a pretty simple one, and that is that the causality of the problems is being adopted, not whether it's an international adoption or a domestic adoption, but the fact that they are being adopted at all creates those problems. I think you could have contrasted the evidence that the advocate used on this point a little bit more with the evidence that you have there, and I think that that would have made that argument a little bit stronger. On your justifications for international adoption, I think you've got the right idea here on those points. Like I said, I'm not sure that it's mutually exclusive to the claims presented by the advocate, but you are going to give us an argument or a justification for doing international adoptions. That's okay. The notion that there are that adoptions are limited domestically because of restrictions, I think that explains why people might be seeking international adoptions. That's pretty good. But then you came up with some numbers about the rates of adoptions internationally and nationally, and the way they came out, it sounded like it was going the opposite direction of the conclusion that you were making, so that needed to be clarified a little bit more. The other big issue that you have on this argument that I think needs to be simply clearer is that a lot of international adoptions are pursued because of the fear that the adoption might be retracted by the parent or by the birth parents, who then might withdraw their acceptance of the adoption, and that you don't get that in international situations. I think that that's the claim that you need to make, and it needs to be pretty simple. It's in there, but it kind of gets buried in the argument. And then, like I said, on the third point, I thought that was the thing that you had the clearest contradictory claim on. All right, thank you.